Is Hungary's new alliance with China a first step towards BRICS membership? And will it have an impact on I guess this has to do with the Russia-Ukraine conflict still. So Scott, your take on this. I also want to pull up an interesting article that has to do with China that I think kind of paves the way for following up whatever your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, first of all, if you take a look at Hungary, they've taken a very strong principled position on a lot of issues pertaining to the EU and to the Ukrainian conflict, but they've been put under a lot of pressure, and there's a certain reality that Hungary has to deal with. Principle's fine until Hungary's stomachs cause a revolt in the streets or something of that nature. And so Viktor Orban has been, pretty consistent, but he's had to make some concessions in order to keep money flowing in from the European Union, in order to be not to lose his voting rights, etc. By working with China, he's creating a plan B. He's creating an alternative. He's an option for Ukraine, for Hungary, in case the West finally says, we're shutting you all down, trying to get you to surrender. Orban will say, well, I'm not surrendering because I got my new best friend, China. And, and that's the way we work. One of the problems with Hungary right now is that it doesn't have a border with Russia. It's got a border with Ukraine, but it doesn't have a border with Russia. That may change sometime this year. Hungary may have a border with Russia, which now means that Hungary is protected because they have a landline of communication to Russia that links them in with China. And now this relationship with China becomes real. I think we're looking at, it's not just going to be Hungary, because let's say Hungary does that. I think Hungary also has a border with Serbia. And Serbia now won't be landlocked. One of Serbia's problems is they're just smack dab in the middle of Europe, surrounded, and it's hard to, talk about, lines of communication, etc. But now, if you have connectivity, land connectivity to Russia, that leads to China, and Russia is the head of BRICS this year. They will be holding a BRICS summit in Kazan, and I wouldn't be surprised in Kazan if we have talks not about immediate membership, but that Hungary and Serbia are invited in as observers for potential future. This changes everything in Europe, because if you suddenly have defections of, Serbia is not an EU member, but they've been sacrificing everything, their honor, their credibility, to become an EU member. You have Hungary that's just fed up with the EU, but they have no other option. You have Slovakia that would like to head in that direction. And as things deteriorate in Europe, people are going to say, hey, can I sign up for that too? Yeah. Germany. I wouldn't be surprised. Germany. I mean, again, my favorite car when I was growing up in Germany, when I lived there in the 80s, was a Porsche 911 SC Turbo, rough modified. Rough is a company that beefs up the engine. I mean, but it was a beautiful car, but you couldn't afford it. It's German made. I mean, it's hard to get. Well, guess what's going to happen in the next couple of years? Porsche is talking about moving its manufacturing out of Germany to the United States. The Porsche 911 SC Turbo is going to become an American-made car. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the German economy. It's tanking. Industry is fleeing. It's gone. And the Germans may very well say, we don't like what's happening here. Hey, China. Because here again, we have to talk about Germany. The Germans sent delegations to China to try and lecture the Chinese about, supporting Russia and all this stuff. And, and then their big thing isn't sanctions. Well, of course they can't sanction. It was de-risking. I think that was the term they used. We're de-risking. Yeah. That means you're sanctioning. It means that you're going to pull stuff out. And so the German government's like, we're going to de-risk to balance the thing. And all the German companies, VW is the big one. They came up and they said, let me educate you here, boss, idiot, moron. We lose money everywhere because of you. because of your energy policies, cutting off the cheap gas, what you've done here, there's not a VW business that makes money in Germany or in Europe. We only remain solvent because of China, what we do in China. And now you're telling me you want me to come in and start pulling the plug on the only thing that makes us money? If we do that, we go bankrupt, we go under, we leave Germany. And every German company that's doing business in China said the same thing. We don't make money anywhere. The only place we make money is China, and China props us up. It keeps us a little bit in the black. Black or yeah, I think you want to be in the black. Red's bad, black's good in the economy. So a little bit in the black. And the Germans had to say, oh, well, maybe we don't want to de-risk as much as we thought we originally wanted to de-risk because we can't. Germany's already married to China and realizes that that's their economic future. They're not going to take the lead because Germany is the heart of the EU. The German economy is the, but not long. The German economy is having a heart attack. And the EU is like, oh, who's going to step up? France? No, they're having a heart attack. Michelin tires, they're shut down. They can't produce them anymore. They're going to America. Everything's going to America, which makes you think that maybe America Joe Biden had some nefarious motive when he shut down Nord Stream, that it wasn't just about hurting the Russians. It was about destroying Europe so that Europe, because America has a problem. We deindustrialized. We sent everything out, and it's very expensive to reindustrialize. But if they come to us, we suddenly have problems solved. Now we have good, high-paying jobs, industrial jobs that now allow the American industrial base to get reinvigorated. Steel, rubber, petroleum. I mean, the whole thing.
And Germany will be paying. And Germany will be paying for. They'll be paying for the access to the market, which, therefore,
unless Germany joins BRICS.
Yeah.
And so I'm just you're telling you that the future, man, this is just going to get interesting. I mean, because Europe is floundering economically. It's floundering bad. And I think Viktor Orban may be, the sort of a visionary by sitting there saying the solution to floundering Europe ain't America. Mm-hmm. It's China. Exactly. And I think you might be seeing a whole bunch of that taking place down the road.
Oh, yes, especially in this part of Europe. I mean, Serbia, you might remember, Scott, during NATO's bombing campaign, China's relationship with Serbia, with the former Yugoslavia, has always been very strong. With Serbia, it's remained strong, and there were a few Chinese journalists who were actually killed in those bombings.
They blew up the Chinese embassy.
Yeah, they blew up the Chinese embassy. It was one of the darkest periods in the relations between China and NATO, Washington. But I think it's important to always keep China in mind in these conversations about Europe, because I don't know if Hungary is going to join BRICS anytime soon, but the overall trend is toward integration. It's obvious Hungary's navigation of the Ukraine conflict, as well as its growing relationship with China. I think part of this question was that Hungary and China high-level officials have just met. I think their public security ministry in China has met with Hungary's counterpart, and they're agreeing to security assistance. I don't think any of this is that shocking. But, here's just today, Time Magazine, right? You have U.S. hawks must finally get real about China. And you think, oh, well, Time Magazine is talking about, well, maybe because they mention all of these deficits. We talk about them all the time in terms of industrial base, weaponry, military, things that we've covered here, Scott, over and over and over again in relation to China instead of Russia this time. However, the conclusion is very interesting, because what this person, and I'll tell you who he is in a second, what he concludes is that we don't have to get real in terms of maybe scaling back and maybe perhaps not pursuing a policy of aggression towards China. But actually, that hawks, the war hawks, the neocons, they need to follow the convictions they lead. Hard power is central. If we face scarcity that will take years at best to address, we can't walk, gum, and chew. That the most dangerous threat we face is the one with the most hard power, China. That it's imprudent to cut so close. And in fact, what has to happen is that action, more action, instead of saying, well, we need to pull back because of these objective realities. We need to go even further, essentially saying we need to, the United States, the Pentagon, they need to invest heavily in war with China. But I just want to show quickly who this guy is. This is Eldridge Colby. He was the author. And guess who Eldridge Colby is? I mean, this is a fellow you would think knows a lot about major power conflict in military affairs. Not really. But where he comes from a Center for New American Security. He basically wrote the national security strategy under Donald Trump of great power competition. But where did he end up in the beginning of his career? He served with the Coalition Provisional Authority in Iraq in 2003. So essentially, the U.S. Government that was propped up following the occupation and the invasion of Iraq. In any event, Scott, your final thoughts on this question? I mean, this is the trend. It feels like integration with China and, of course, Russia, Eastern Europe, the rest of the world, and then the United States looking toward their most hawkish elements to take them on a path toward what seems to be self-destruction in these conflicts with Russia and China.
I would say this: if you're a journalist who covers this issue, who covers, BRICS related issues and things of that nature, there are two meetings that you have to go to this year. The first is the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in June. Why? Because the Russian economy is the trendsetter when it comes to integration with China. And if you go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum and just people watch, you're going to see a whole bunch of people look like they're Chinese. Some of them will actually look like they're North Korean, because they are. And you'll realize that China's already here. China's doing this. This is already happened. It's not something that's going to happen. We always talk about China in the way of, well, that could happen. It's happening right now. We have already been surpassed. What Viktor Orban's trying to do isn't theoretical. He's trying to replicate what Russia is doing right now. And you need to go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and you need to see that. The second meeting that you have to go to is in Kazan in October. And that's the BRICS summit. You have to go there because Russia has a plan. BRICS was sort of this, I'm not going to call it ad hoc, but it was sort of this club of people who thought they had a good idea, but hadn't really learned how to express it. And then suddenly they grew up overnight because of the stupidity of the West, who started sanctioning and they said, well, we have to grow up real quick. I mean, it's like, those Westerners where the kids are going across with their family in the covered wagon and the Indians come in and kill daddy, kill mommy. And you got the brother and the sister with the little ones to care. They had to grow up quick. They had to become adults. And BRICS has become adult overnight. They expanded. They've got 5 new members coming in. And now with this expanded BRICS that's talking about expanding more, they have to build the infrastructure of success. They have to institutionalize this. They have to create the framework of coordination. So they're going to build these standing committees. They're going to build the structure. They're going to staff it. They're going to budget it. They're going to get a development bank. They're going to do all the things. And that's happening this year in Kazan in October. And you need to be there to see it, or otherwise you're going to be held prisoner to the stupidity of Western journalists who aren't going to go there, and they're going to report long distance. And you're not going to see it. If you're not there and you're not seeing it. And then what I would say is after that, you got to go to China. And you got to go to China and you got to look at what's happening in China. You have to see, for instance, it's not just Chinese going to Russia. The Russians are opening up businesses in China too. Germany is, other people are. China is a global economy for a reason, because the globe isn't just, China's not just going out there and populating the globe. The globe is coming to China and doing business with China. And if you don't understand this, then you're going to sit back here and you're going to be susceptible to all the crap that the West is giving you about strong American economy, a resilient European. Guys, there ain't nothing strong about the American economy, and there's nothing resilient about the European economy. You want to see strong, resilient economies? Go to Russia, go to China. And that's why Viktor Orban is looking in that direction.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm very excited. I'll be going back to China in April to do this very thing that you speak of, Scott, similar to what you try to do in Russia, although your connections, your high-level connections in Russia are very impressive, and I'm so glad you're able to make those. But Scott, I've kept you for a while. Let's head out of here tonight. Everyone, follow Scott at ScottRitterExtra.com. You can follow him. The video description has the link, and of course, the video description also has all the ways you can find my work and support my work here on this channel: Patreon, Substack, YouTube, and much more. Buy me a coffee, etc. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyHaiFong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.